Welcome everyone to this important international webinar organized by South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. Today we are addressing a crucial topic: from hate to violence, a state-sponsored threat to freedom of religion is held in observance of the International Day of Peace recognized by United Nations. I am Zehra Naqvi, your moderators for today's session, and I'm the Senior Research Associate at South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, where my work focuses on minority rights and social justice. I am honored to guide this discussion with such a distinguished panel of experts. Our webinar today aims to explore the various dimensions of the state-sponsored threats to religious freedom, drawing on the experiences and insights of our esteemed speakers. Before we start, a brief note about the format. Each speaker will have approximately 7 to 8 minutes for their presentation, and we encourage you to actively participate and submit your questions via chat box. So let me introduce our esteemed speakers. So we are having Professor Anja Mihr from Germany, and next we are having Dr. Obed Manwatkar from USA and Reeta Pariyar from Nepal. Our last speaker is Brijlal Chaudhari from France. Our very first speaker for today's discussion is Professor Anja Mihr, PhD Program Director at the Center of Governments through the Human Rights in Germany. Professor Mihr research focuses on human rights governance and the role of state institutions in sustaining religious intolerance. We are looking forward to her insights on the global dimensions of the state-sponsored threat to religious freedom. So over to you, Ms. Anja.
Disentangling the issues to what extent hate speech and dangerous speech can have an impact, a harmful impact on, let's say, religious minorities or expressing freedom of religion, exercising one's own religion. Dangerous speech is often underestimated, but it's actually the most violent and dangerous form of speech because it targets specific groups with a specific determination. As we have seen during the Rwandan genocide and also during the genocide in my own country, some 70, 80 years ago on the Shoah, but also the Rwandan genocide on Hutus, between Hutus and Tutsis, where the Hutus slaughtered the Tutsis. And in my own country, it was the Nazi regime slaughtering, persecuting, and committing a genocide against religious, ethnic, and other minorities. They used dangerous speech. These two examples of countries, I could also use it for the Armenian genocide, for the genocide in former Yugoslavia, in Srebrenica, often connected to genocide, we find dangerous speech. Dangerous speech aims at humiliating, degrading specific groups with a specific purpose of extinction and harm. This harm can be even expulsion, for instance, also towards religious minorities, to say, look, these minorities of Buddhist minorities, Hindu minorities, Muslim minorities, Christian minorities should no longer live in this country. Then it is dangerous speech because it gives clear guidance what to do with that particular group. For instance, you are allowed to kill that particular minority, to exempt them from schooling, to exempt them from political office. And that is why it's called dangerous speech. It's targeted. It also, dangerous speech has legal implications. Basically, dangerous speech is directly violating international human rights law. If we would go through the conventions and covenants, the core treaties of the United Nations, the core human rights treaties, we would find almost in every treaty a reference to dangerous speech, where dangerous speech discriminates a certain group with the purpose of, again, exclusion and even extermination of that group. So this is a direct link to a human rights violation. Why am I starting with dangerous speech? It is the most violent, the most dangerous form, but it can be sort of legalized. And here I come now to hate speech. And that is where we struggle often, because hate speech, let's say, is the overall, it's a sort of a general notion of disgraceful, racist, discriminatory speech against a general group. I dislike, I hate that particular religious group or ethnic minority, or I don't like these people, or to say something wrong about these people, creating conspiracies. Yes, hate speech can also lead to direct harm, but it's not its primary purpose. And that is why also we struggle in front of international courts. We see this here in Europe, particularly in the Council of Europe region and the European Court of Human Rights, that it struggles greatly with the notion of hate speech, because you have to prove that because someone says a certain religious group should not carry public office, let's say Christians or Muslims or Hindus or whatever should not carry a certain office, that would be hate speech or would qualify it hate speech. But you can often not legalize that because you're just making such a general comment and you are not targeting specific persons or people, etc., etc. So that is why hate speech, in a way, can, of course, turn into dangerous speech, but it is much more general and it's much more difficult in terms of human rights to say legalize, to file claims and to bring it in front of the court. And that is why hate speech, even so it's disgraceful, discriminatory, hurtful, harmful to some extent to people. We see this also in hate speech against women, hating women, for instance, just general, that it's 4.5 billion people or 6 billion people on this planet are women. And people who hate women, it's a big group. Yeah. But if you target a particular group out of these women or female groups or religious group, then it becomes dangerous speech. That is why hate speech struggles not only in the public dialogue or competes rather with the freedom of expression. Where do we draw the line? With hate speech, it's much more difficult. I can express my dislike towards a particular group, and this group might say, oh, this is already hate speech. But I could easily say, no, that's my freedom of expression. I have a very bad experience with this particular group because they speak a certain language or they follow a certain culture and tradition and habits. But I'm not calling for their extinction. I'm not calling for their expulsion. I just say I dislike them because of something. And that is then covered by the freedom of expression. So hate speech is a very tricky case because, again, it can lead to dangerous speech where it is actually justifiable and we can legalize it, or it can be in the realm of freedom of expression where we hardly can touch it. And this is where the dialogue starts about to what extent or where hate speech ends and becomes sort of a dangerous speech, and where it is covered by the freedom of expression. And that, of course, refers also to the very big issue of this webinar, the freedom of religion, exercising one's religion. And there is one more notion here I can only speak from a global perspective, where not only in sort of in the Eurasian context where you operate in, but also when we look at Sub-Saharan Africa or in Latin America, where hate speech and religion is that there are certain practices and habits from certain religious groups, particularly Muslims and Jews. For instance, in Europe, they have the part of their cultural practice of their religion, the Islam and Judaism, is, for instance, circumcision. But we also have this circumcision of boys, but we also have circumcision of girls from another religious group, mostly in Muslim countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, where the religious leaders say, this is our culture, this is part of our religious habits and exercise. And others say, no, this restricts the freedom of self-determination of these boys and girls, and also it infringes their right to health and individual development. And you can see there are also already a few human rights that sort of contradict in this moment. And you simply have to get into a dialogue and draw a line. And here, the European Court of Human Rights has taken a decision on this. I can give you this particular example of circumcision, which is not covered by the freedom of religion entirely. And the compromise was now that circumcisions are only allowed under medical care. So in hospitals, for instance, so children do not suffer and die because of wrongful circumcision. So the freedom of religion or the religious exercise is maintained, but also the right to health. And hence, some religious practices here, the way they were conducted previously, let's say by elderlies of a community who conducted the circumcision without medical education, that is forbidden. But it is not infringing the freedom of religion. I leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that enlightening start. So our next speaker is Dr. Obed Manwatkar, an Interfaith scholar and professor of world religions and culture at North Park University, Chicago, USA. Dr. Manwatkar will address the intersections of the interfaith dialogues and in state policies affecting the religious freedom. So, sir, the floor is now all yours.
Well. First of all, thank you so much for this time for South Asia Research Institute of Humanities, the team, SARIM. It's always a joy to be here. SARIM is like our home. I'm glad that you guys continue to invite me on your webinars like this to talk. Well, number one, I'm not an expert. I'm still learning. Okay, I'm still a researcher. I'm still a learner. Being a professor, I continue to be a student so that I could continue to learn. Uh, and the topic, which is yes, I was thinking about this topic, and I kind of have made a presentation for this, but I hope I can do justice to the objectives of this webinar. So I'll try to cover things, and our friend from Germany has already made a differentiation, and that is really an amazing analogy. I would appreciate my friend from Germany. Yeah, yes, little like depends on how we interpret which speech is hate speech or which speech is not hate speech, and so because it's about into context. Mm, for instances, in India, if, when we say let's annihilate the caste system, it's not hate speech. It is literally something Dr. Ambedkar taught us. But in USA, you say if you even speak the word caste, the counterattack is already there, Hindu phobia. And so that is not a hate speech actually. Annihilation of caste is not a hate speech. So that's how the things have been now changing. Many things have been normalized. Many things have been trying to reframe. Many people are trying to reframe the things as a hate speech, and so yeah, I'll jump into my presentation and try to do justice to your concept notes. So I have okay. All right, thank you. I got anyway, so yeah, I jump. Okay, yeah. Can you view my presentation? Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, from hate speech to violence. So our friend from Germany, when she said hate speech and what, so she made it very clear. So I'm grateful for that. So my opinion is like what I found out that hate speech in recent years, like that's what I say. The world has witnessed. The world is going crazy right now. It's total chaos in the world. So the world has witnessed several mass atrocities. It's already happening in the world, and many of these cases, hate speech as which was identified as, in one sentence, if I say, precursor to atrocity crimes, including genocide. That is hate speech. While the use of social media and digital platforms to spread this hate is relatively recent, the weaponization of public discourse for political gain is unfortunately not new. And as history continues to show, hate speech coupled mhm, with disinformation, and which can lead to stigmatization, discrimination, and large scale violence. It has psychological effects, social effects, and political effects. Indeed, experience of discrimination on the basis of caste, race, gender are consistently linked with mental health issues, such as it results in depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as physical ailments such as diabetes, hypertension, obesity. Young adults who have faced discrimination frequently, at least a few times per month, were around 25% more likely to be diagnosed with mental health disorder and twice as likely to develop several psychological distress than those who hadn't experienced discrimination or did less of it. This is all I'm citing from 2021 study in the Journal of Patriotic Journals. I've taken this. This is not my own views. I have taken this idea from the journal Patriotics. So I'm not a mental health guy, but so that's why I took notes from there. So indeed, hate crimes lead us to wide range of mental health issues. Um, and in 2020, a study found that experience of hate are associated with poor emotional well-being, and such as feelings of anger and shame. Victims tend to experience poor mental health, including depression, anxiety, and societal behavior. Some research also points to the finding the experience of hate-motivated behavior can result in blaming and uh, lower empathy toward fellow victims. Entire communities can feel the impacts of victimization. Members of the targeted community may experience visceral trauma symptoms resulting from witnessing others being victimized. Psychological research has also found that uh, even just the use of hateful language against others in national issue campaigns and venues, such as online platforms, can have devastating consequences. This is something with uh, mental health and issues and psychological things are there. As far as social things are concerned, um, yeah, as far as the intentional discrimination, wherever there is intentional discrimination, this it occurs at level of individuals. Institutional discrimination denotes explicit policies of social institutions that exclude, impede, or otherwise harm certain groups. The damage is already been seen. Well-known examples of laws restricting the rights of racial ethnic minorities or denying women the franchise. A lot of things, the patriarchy is so rampant in this world, and so majority of the things are faced by women of that particular community. Uh, by contrast, structural discrimination characterizes policies that are neutral in intent and implementation, but are nevertheless potentially harmful to minorities. Uh, Opponents of structural discrimination hold that states have an obligation to bring about equal life changes for all, a duty that entails proactive compensation by some institution for the unequal treatment that minorities have experienced in the past or continue to experience in various social systems. Social explanations of discrimination based on social identity here we presume that humans rely on the groups they belong or to for a part of their identity. Belonging to a group that is more prestigious and powerful than others boosts one's sense of self-esteem. Discrimination that entails debasing and impairing out group members or denying them access to resources and wealth serves the purpose of strengthening the relative position of one's in group and also indirectly boosts individual self-esteem. Empirical studies, if you do empirical studies, it confirms, many of the scholars confirm that persons with low sense of social recognition display more out group de-evaluation and group focus enmity based on an ideology of human inequality. Negative attitudes toward different outgroups are strongly correlated with each other, indicates the unspecific nature of discrimination which affects the entire society. Indeed, political things are well. It is happening in the world. We all know what happens with the head speech if they so hateful rhetoric targeting minority groups is an established technique to unify and mobilize political supporters and to delegitimize and dehumanize political opponents. Hate speech by politicians also serves to deepen political polarization. More polarized societies are especially uh, susceptible to bouts of political violence and terrorism. Then politicians use hate speech. When taken to an extreme, hateful rhetoric by political leaders can precipitate civil wars and genocides. And yeah, recently a lot of things have happened in India. Um, Politicians are literally giving direct commands to their followers, to dehumanize a certain community and dehumanizing. Basically, many of the Hindutva leaders have given Islamophobic speeches. Churches being attacked in India, mosques being attacked, and which is horrible. Of course, one of the great men in here in United States, literally in one of the things he said, like we immigrants are eating cats and dogs here. That's happening in this country. So that is also like we took it as sarcasm, but actually that is a hate speech. Uh, and he was talking about some country and who have people from some country, one particular country, were migrated to USA. So anyway, so hate speech is in a continuation in different forms against the minority targeted violence. But yeah, as far as legal things are concerned, there are a lot of uh, I think there are a lot of existing legal policy and measures there. Many countries there are laws. Of course, uh, when Dr. Ambedkar, I would love to quote Dr. Ambedkar that he said that with justice on our side, I do not see how we can lose a battle. The battle to me is a matter of joy. The battle is in the fullest sense spiritual. There is nothing material social in it. For us, it's a battle not for wealth, not for power. It is a battle for freedom. It is a battle for the reclamation of human personality. And of course, so uh, this battle for human rights battle is for our rights. We can talk, say, we are trying to uh, let the world know that we are also humans and people who are discriminated. So they have voice. Resisting is not hate speech. Resisting the violence is not hate speech, but often resisting the politician who is speaking things against the community. And if the community resists that, counters that, questions that, they are framed as haters. So that's the irony which is happening. Depends on who governs the government. If government is in the wrong hands, law can be misused. That's the thing. One of the best remarkable measures is 1980s, the Rajiv Gandhi government. Then the then 1980s, yeah, after Indira Gandhi, I think, yeah, in India, the then Rajiv Gandhi government, they enacted an atrocity act, which called, uh, because the revolt was led by Dalit Christians of Telugu Dalit Christians in India, in South, of the atrocities they are facing. So they revolted, and government was pressurized. Central government was pressurized to enact an atrocity act. So we have atrocity act in India, where anyone, if someone persecutes us, anyone persecutes a minority or Dalit, they can file an. I'm sorry, the Dalit, especially scheduled caste community. Those who are from scheduled caste community, if they get persecuted, abused, they can file a police complaint or something, and case can be registered under atrocity act against another person. So those are things, but depends, who governs the government, who governs the law. No, if law is in the wrong hands, that's really. And if media speaks one language of one politician, and that is something which is alarming. So today, a lot of dangers are there for South Asia. Dictatorships are taking up, and not just South Asia. Majority of the world, which you see conservative governments have come up in the power, and that's really something alarming for human rights today. The movement for human rights today. Uh, Stories of success. There are like when I was researching on it, there are many, many. There are like I found 17 to 18 stories of success till today in this tsunami of hate which is going on in the world. But one of the amazing stories which I picked is Pope Francis. George Mario Bergoglio was a cardinal from Argentina. He's from Argentina, and he was elevated to Pope in 2013 after the resignation of Pope Benedict in Roman Catholic Church. Well, I am not Roman. I don't follow Roman Catholic tradition, but I really love this guy. He took the name Pope Francis after Francis of Assisi. There was Saint Francis of Assisi, amazing peacemaker, is known, and his famous song "Make Me a Channel of Your Peace" is really famous everywhere. So Pope Francis, he named after named Francis of Assisi, Saint Francis. So what he did is the most shocking part for the entire Catholic Church and entire Christian world. He began his papacy, and he started he by washing feet of Muslim women, in immigrant Muslim women in Italy, in his own country. So women in prison, on Monday, Thursday, he went and he just like started washing their feet and kissing their feet, and this is like as an act of reconciliation. And this shocked the entire Christian world, especially Orthodox communities. And he continues to engage in interfaith dialogues and Christian. He has made a point of traveling to Muslim countries as well as to the Holy Land, which we call Palestine, with visits with Jewish and Muslims and Christian leaders. In an age of polarization, Pope Francis has been an important example of how can be fully committed to one's own tradition and use that as springboard for meaningful and constructive dialogues with others. So this is what the story of success looks like. This is what uh, there are the stories of hope is there, that Pope Francis, people like Pope Francis are still there in this world, raising hope. So yeah, Pope Francis recently gave a statement against things happening in Gaza, and it shocked the really Western world. What people were saying, what the wrong is with this guy? Come on, he did what as a leader should do. So, anyways, so there are things. People are still working. We things are going. There is hope in this era of conservative hate, and we we should be the people who should generate hope. Should we are the people of love who can continue to sow the seeds of love, so that there could be some harvest today. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to me, and I will stop here. Blessings.
Thank you, Dr. Obed, for your insightful presentation. I really appreciate the time and effort you put into sharing your knowledge with us. Our third speaker is Brijlal Chaudhari, President of Global Home for Indigenous People in France. Mr. Chaudhari will discuss the experience and role of the state, policies, and everything. So may you proceed now.
Mhm. Thank you so much, the organizer and Furkan for the invitation. Yes, just celebrating the International World Peace. I just wanted to share a data about like the state of democracies around the world. So there was a recent research that was conducted by Freedom House, and the number of countries, the number of population living in full democracies, is declining over the 17 years of research they have been doing. So the democratic space that where every single communities thrive is shrinking, like what Professor Obed and Anya spoke about. And it's only 7.8% of the population of the world living in full democracy. So you can imagine the state of affairs, like the authoritarian governments, and their plan of action for people who are minorities in their countries. So so yeah, so hate speech is a step towards the violence, like the structural violence. It helps institute structural violent policies, and eventually becomes violent during the election, for instance, BJP election, or even in what you call Sri Lanka. Myanmar is another case where there are Rohingya minorities. So there are a lot of spaces where online has become a tool for people to create take advantage as well, in dehumanizing the population that they live in. So I'm just going to talk about my case. So I'm an indigenous population from Nepal. So my people are Tharu people. So in the constitution, this was not online hate, but how it became structural policies. So the state, the government of Nepal, in the first constitution, they labeled indigenous people as, like my people, Tharu people, as people who can be enslaved and they drink. So that was the only classification that they gave us. So we're not even in the caste system. So based on that, they also took our land. And they were the Tharu people were in indentured labor, so they work for the families in Western Nepal, and they have been doing that for a while. Even today, it's happening. So it's how the narrative, how it starts. So it's so that's the experience that I wanted to share. But over the course of time, Nepal, has done really good things when it comes to creating constitutional bodies. For instance, there is a Tharu Commission now, which advises the government of Nepal how to integrate indigenous population. There is Muslim Commission, Dalit Commission, but still in daily life, the society, you don't get a rent because you're a Dalit, you don't get a rent in Kathmandu if you're a Muslim, you don't get a rent if you're a lower caste, and it's even difficult if you're a woman among these communities, and and the media as well. For instance, when there is a when they report, they don't follow up on the cases of minority issues. For instance, there was a rape, violence. It just disappears in a certain time, So even media is very based on how to say the majority culture people want to see, like political culture. They don't want to report on cases that are very important for minority people, and the media space is shrinking as well in South Asia in general. They're controlled by, they're creating very different narratives as well. So there's online individual person, but media, which is a corporate house supported by political parties. BJP has their own media. Even the government of Nepal, there are political parties in Nepal. They also have their own media houses that limits the space for diversity, diverse voices. And I just want to share a story of a healthy forest. So healthy forest is where many plants and shrubs, tall, small trees grows. And that's the society we should imagine. That there's a space for everybody. Nobody's uprooted. And the sun, which is our government, our society, everybody gets the sunlight they need. To prosper, foster, and grow. And with the hate speech coming, growing, it's like what Dr. Abed said. The tsunami of hate speech is really, really, really a serious threat to our humanity. As a human being, it has very various different consequences that we cannot even imagine if you are from that community, and the psychological, social effects. And just wanted to share about, like, so these narratives that the online, dehumanizing, they deserve less. If they get what they deserve, then I will get the less. The mainstream society, this is the narrative that we should remove. So when a minority becomes educated, they have a job, they have a government job, society wins. In my opinion. So I'll stop it at there. But there are a lot of norms and mechanisms that minority people can engage in. But again, they need support. They need funding. They need spaces that the mainstream society are organizing. We have to include them in all the discussions that we're having. Yeah, so I'll stop it there.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, for your valuable contribution and for setting the stage for our today's discussion. Our last speaker is Reeta Pariyar, a writer, human rights activist, and social entrepreneur based in Kathmandu, Nepal. Her work centers on grassroots activism and the impact of the state-sponsored violence on minority communities. We're looking forward to hear her insights on the local and regional implication of these issues. For these issues, over to you, Ms. Reeta.
Hello, namaskar. Good afternoon. Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'm sorry I missed all of the speakers' speech as I didn't have a Zoom ID to join. I don't know how it got confusion with the organizer. I think previous friend Brinjal has said so much about Nepal as well regarding this topic. But it would be really nice if I could hear all of yours speech. So the topic was from hate to violence, the state's sponsored threat to freedom of religion. It has a topic had itself. It's a deep meaning in it. So how state can sponsor themselves to spread the um, violence and hate, sometimes in between their own people. Um, Basically, it has an agenda, always how politically affiliated the situation is. Society itself is very conservative, regardless of lack of education, lack of awareness, lack of empathy, lack of sympathy. Is what state does is divide the people into many sectors: religion, caste, creed, internet, media. So this is how I think the government can rule over the citizen. This is how they always try to divide. That's a fundamental um, theme of the politics. So, but above that, how this government has uh, try to make issue in between their own country, and how the international politics even has create the issues in between two countries. You know, sometime our history teach us to hate another country, like a neighbor country mostly. I guess I still remember that we've been taught in history that oh, India has taken our land, so you know they've been attacking us, sort of thing. So when I was child, I kind of like, oh my god, that country is really bad. I don't like that, you know. So the same goes with the probably India and Pakistan, probably other countries, you know, the now how it's happening in Russia and Ukraine, and how this led America with the China and with the Russia. So there's a the world has been divided such a way. So that is another part, even to spare this hate in between human beings. Then how they narrative the story is very interesting. That the world is, for me, I like to think myself I'm a citizenship of the world, because I think I should be able to travel from one country to another country, because this country owns by the living creature or non-living creature, all of it. Is the earth has the same sun, the same wind, the same water, like you know. So, but then why this is some political agenda, some political people has tried to divide it into many pieces. So that is another philosophical topic, and then it's a very debatable topic as well. So many has said many things about um, the earth has everybody has a right on the earth, over the earth, that like is whoever born in America or whoever born in Germany, whoever born in Pakistan as equal as in Nepal, you know. So we just happen to born in a different part of the world, but we should all have equal rights. But then uh, when the human evolution happened, then the many religions were there since the beginning, and every religion has their own authenticity, their own way of living life, own way of praying to the God. Some said God, some said universe, some said Bhagavan, whatever. So there's a different name, but everybody has their own way of living life. What I believe is a religion called in a Sanskrit is a dharma. Dharma is the way of living life. So the religion is the way of living life. Some likes to live in a different way, some likes to live in a different way. So everybody should have equal rights, and then their own freedom of believing whatever they have a faith on it. So then human rights violation Article 18 has already said that everybody has a right to believe in their own religion, and they can practice freely with their faith without harming, without interfering any other religion. So that is the right has been and has already written those rights. But still nowadays, how this state has sponsored, state has created the one issue of religion, like why they want try, well, there is a majority of the religion try to suppress the minority of the religion. You know, this is a scary world is going out there, because many other way that the establishment has not got the power to hypnotize the people. The people are aware. People now, the human beings are very aware, very sympathetic and empathetic towards each other. They know that every religious people or not religious people, everybody is a human being. But then, when the human love started loving to another, so then what happened was like the state has to control their own people. So sometimes they sponsor, or sometimes they uh, deliberately do the certain things. For example, how it's happening in Myanmar, how that Buddhist people are suppressed by the uh, Muslim people, and the India. If you take India, how the Hindu people suppressed Muslim people, so that if you go to the other side of the world, there's many other issues is happening here. But why this is happening? Because government wants to rule their own people, so they want to create the problem in between two people. So then, what is how they can do it is enough that you know. But then now, why this Holocaust, this Rohingya, this Hinduism is radically growing. It's a they the way they try to you know how this they treat each other. So for example, in Nepal, the use we have like majority of Hindu. So Hindu try to suppress the Muslim, and then another religions, Christians and Jain, you name it, others. And we have this kind of really uh, this it's my country, it's a my temple, and then it's my people. The way they own their own religious people and they bias the other people, which is very very scary. Because sometimes when you are in a place, so when there is a pain, there is a violence. So the suppression, whenever people are in a suppression, they feel the pain. So there is a only way sometimes the coming out that pain can be the dangerous. So the nation has to be very careful about that, to not to create the problem in between the same people who lives in the same countries. And the same goes to the India, how it is now. It's a Myanmar is another cases are going on. But what I believe is now it's a 3-4 point is there the why state wants to sponsor this hate speech sometime, like for example, there's a one or two Muslim students are in a Hindu school, the schools of India and Nepal, and how they singing the Ram, the God named Ram bhajan or singing, and then there's a one girl or two girls wants to pray their own way of the religion, and they were being they're being insulted. It's a really they're taking their fundamental rights. Because if you are a lot of being a lot of them doesn't make they are the right, so making, so they always try to suppress this kind of the accident I'm seeing in front of my eyes. There's in the social media, in even the religion books, even the our law in the mostly, and I think in South Asia, in India, in Nepal, law based in Hinduism, so many things written in the Hindu books. Even though we are in a secular country, but the books all written in this, and then our law depends on that. For example, if some Muslim woman or man wants to be a parliament member, they have to take a oath in the Gita. Gita is a Hindu book, which is very incorrect for somebody from the different religion to force them to take a oath in another religion's book. I mean, that is recently changed in UK Parliament, which I just saw it that the last after the last Labour one, then they have a different that Hindu took in a Gita, Christian took in a Bible, then Muslim took in a Quran. So this is the freedom of the religion, which is practicing in a really uh, liberal country, and it's very good to see. I don't know the people how they suffer there, living there. People maybe they have their story, but what we see from the outside, at least they have a freedom. They're liberated. At least they appreciate the people of different religion lives in that country, and they have a right to take oath in their own religion, which is very liberating things, which is not in a South Asian country, which I'm not aware of that. Maybe I have to more look for it. Um, I really missed our previous panel discussions friend from the Germany. I would love to know if they have this kind of issues or not after taking oath in a parliament. How this religious book, holy book, they take a oath, which way they do. But anyway, I we missed it. So then hate speech, how they do in social media, so many the cyber sena, we call it. I don't know what you call that. The many political party funded the different people to write on their name of the religions, their party. So they give a bad name to the other religions, wrote in the social media, and that is even very dangerous because that can make really negative to the people. They're thinking towards, oh, he or she is a Christian, they must be bad. He's a Muslim, they must be bad. So this kind of thing, hate speech, and in social media, that is really bad. That sometimes the government even found that to itself, which we already know many things which is happening in America right now. Wherever uh, if the black people killed shoes in people, and they were the terrorists, and even the white people kill some things, and he or she had a mental problem. So this is how the narrative going on. Anybody could be the terrorist. It's not the color has in it the terrorist, and the religion has in it. So anybody can be not terrorist or not, but anything has a religion. They are different part of the world. They live in a different way. So you should not blame each other for a name of the religion, caste, color, for being that person. So sometimes even the when we don't get even the when citizens don't get the help from the nation, so they go to the UN, United Nations, which is invented for to giving the people nation rights, human rights, all things. So sometimes they can be manipulated as well because who funded them? It's a very crazy thing. So, but sometimes I don't know whether I should be able to talk openly about this or not. But even sometimes they write some rule and regulation, which is can be provoked sometimes. So they what is happening in Palestine now? So how many times this Guterres has been there? So you should stop ceasefire, but no one is listening. So the Israel is closely blind. I mean, they blinding themselves, seeing everything by there. So this is the something even very confusing things which is happening this contemporary world of time. So political, even political and economic agenda, sometimes the poor country, developing country has to listen to the bigger country like America, Germany, France, UK. But sometimes we get some of the funds from that country, so they try to implement the way they want the constitution and human rights acts goes to the another country, how they should be written, how they should be right, how they should be implemented, and that is impactful. And education, it's a very important things like how the national education, even that they have to, I think, rewrite now. I mean, I'm not talking about the only Nepal. I think the many countries they have to rewrite because 21st century there's not illiterate people. Everybody is illiterate. So one thing they have to do is that they have to unlearn many things, relearn many things, and add more new knowledge over it. Because what I'm trying to say is that so many our education has to reform, rewrite. We have to not to let the young generation to hate each other and each other religions or any nationalities, and in the name of the patriot. In the name of patriarchy, it's really bad to teach anything for a new generation. And we live in an AI world, so now the artificial intelligence has been there. So you and me cannot be there, but they can use our affiliates. The way the Jara has this her scarf over it, she might not be there, but in her name, and somebody can be make another propaganda over this time period of the world. So we have to be very careful of that too. What is the right and what is the wrong as well. So and global responsibility has to be there. What I'm just trying to say is that like whatever the nation try to teach their own people. There is a one quote is that like if you cannot convince somebody, you confuse them. Someone says that. So what state that is that sometimes the state cannot control their people and they make it inferior. They do the certain accident, they make it happen in own nation. So they will tell that, look what is happening. Our neighbor country or some other our enemy country has attacked us. So you have to trust your government, and your government will take care of you. This kind of things has been always saying to the people from their own government. So we all have is a global responsibility how we have to um, uh, uh, love each other regardless of religion, caste, color, nation. So I think that all the activists the South, the SARIM is there, and another friend from France, another friend from Germany. So we all are like a dot, So there's a very few people are the good who thinks good for the world. So those kind of people has to connect and become a line, and then So maybe that way we can help each other, and we can fight against all these narratives who may try to portray some some religions are bad, but no one is bad, So everybody has their own way of one way of living life, and they have a own way of practicing their own religion, faith, whatever you name it. Everybody calls different way to the same God. Some call God, Bhagavan, Ram, universe, whatever you call. But everybody should be freely practicing their own religion. It's the only matter is that we should not uh, hurt others and harm others for our happiness. Whatever we do, we do for ourselves, and if we can do the good things, we do for the good to others, but rather not to do the bad things. I'd like to end on that note. I think everybody has already said it so much, and then I saw the beautiful presentation from the previous friend too. But any question if anybody has, so I'm there for the timing. Thank you so much for your opportunity, Jara. Thank you. Sorry.
I totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Ms. Reeta, for your valuable contribution. We have one question, I guess. Furkan, may you ask your question right now?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much to all our speakers, Professor Anja Mihr, Dr. Obed Manwatkar, Professor Reeta Pariyar, Brijlal Chaudhari, for giving us your valuable insights. My question to Professor Anja, since you represent a country that has been known as one of the founding members of European Union, so how does the European Court of Human Rights influence member states' adherence to freedom of religion, particularly in addressing state-sponsored threats? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm very grateful for it because it is actually quite complicated, and I try to simplify it. I think, first of all, when we talk about the European countries and also state sort of driven threats to religious freedom, that we have two main institutions which often get confused outside the European Union, but also inside the European Union. So what I'm saying now, it's also if I would go and leave my house now here in Berlin and go on the streets, people wouldn't know what I'm talking about. So it's not just a matter for if you're not from the European Union that is confusing. And that is the two institutions in the larger Europe that deals with these issues of hate speech, dangerous speech, freedom of religion. And that is, of course, the European Union and the Council of Europe, which are two completely different organizations. I say that because even so my students always say, yes, I know. Then when I ask them, they don't. So the European Union works in these matters in a very different way than the Council of Europe. And I will elaborate more on the Council of Europe because it's more relevant to your question. But first, I want to clarify the European Union's role in hate speech and freedom of religion. The European Union has passed numerous directives, which is it's parliament. And the member states, France, Germany, Austria, Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, have to implement that. So that is domestic legislation when it comes up to freedom of religion and hate speech. There is, of course, the European Court of Justice for the European Union, but it hardly deals with hate speech. It is the national jurisdiction. So here, this is the one thing. And there you have, of course, hundreds of cases where what I was saying earlier, where the hate speech and the dangerous speech is balanced. So hate speech is largely covered by freedom of expression. Dangerous speech is not. So that's the European Union. Put this on side now. can talk about hours about the cases, but this is not your question. Now it comes to the Council of Europe and the European Court of Human Rights that everybody refers to. And here we have two decisions in the last, let's say, 10 years that I want to give you as an example, which exemplifies the case you're asking. Both have to do with the state of Belgium, interesting enough. They have a large Muslim community, of course. Well, many countries have, but in Belgium, it always, for some reason, it has to be tricky. And that's, for instance, wearing the hijab. There have been two decisions by the European Court of Human Rights, which is the Council of Europe, which includes, by the way, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and many other countries. And there was one roughly 10 years ago where it was, for instance, a Belgian citizen of Muslim belief, a woman, and she was working in a car selling shop, in a store where they sell cars. And she was at the reception. When you go and buy a car, you go into these nice buildings, a lot of cars, and she was sitting there at the reception and welcomed the clients. And one day she decided, because of her religious belief and her faith, she said, I would like to wear the hijab. All right. But it was the hijab covering her face. And so the shop owner, the owner of this business, Belgium, he said, look, my clients say they don't no longer want to buy a car when there is a woman sitting with a hijab. So I will ask you to move into the administration. You can no longer serve the client because it impacts my business. People are not buying cars. I don't make money. I cannot pay your salary. So go to the administration. She filed a claim that this was infringing her rights, freedom of religion, a violation of human rights. She has a right to wear it, and full stop, and the business owner should deal with it. It went up to the Council of Europe, and the court decided in favor of the shop owner. But here comes the decision. Because it infringes his rights to for business and let's say development and making money, etc., he has the right to ask her, not to fire her, but to ask her to move to another section where she is not confronted with the clients. So there were two, let's say, human rights, his rights and the lady's rights infringed. That was a decision. So they didn't. She had the chance either to not wear the hijab and stay in the client service or move to another department of the business. That was that, you see, they were balancing it. There was a recent decision, and again, it was in Belgium, and it was about a Belgian citizen wearing the hijab, a woman. She was in a court case. She was asked to testify in a courtroom in Belgium, and she was wearing the hijab. And the other party in this, she was testifying. She was, and the other, let's say, one of the attorneys said, look, she should disclose her face and not wear the hijab. However, so it went up to the Council of Europe again, to the European Court of Human Rights, and the European Court of Human Rights decided in favor of the lady, because she was testifying. Of course, her ID was taken before, and that was in her private capacity, and she had the right to wear that, let's say, the custom, to exercise her religious custom, because it was a private affair. It was not a public affair. I'm just giving you these two examples. It could take place in any country. I gave you the example of the circumcision of boys and also of girls, and what the compromises were there. When it comes to particular state threat, this is often what you're asking about, is whether there are, let's say, if it's truly governmental. In Europe, yes, there are some governments. I cannot speak, we can talk about Hungary and what they are doing currently with the Muslim minority. But for most countries within, particularly in the European Union, they have to keep these European guidelines and laws. And yes, there are political parties, whether in the Netherlands or here in Germany, who go beyond it. They generalize, they say Muslims will never adopt and all these things. And this is actually close to hate speech and sometimes even gets to dangerous speech. But it is not an official governmental expression, because, let's say, the rule of law system still works. We have nevertheless cases, of course, of people, whether Hindu religion or Jewish people or Muslim, of a Muslim community, who say some of the laws are infringing my human rights, etc. But there is no, if I understand, state-sponsored threats. Or maybe you can give me an example and then I can better respond. Yes, there are political parties who do that. But because of the European Union very strict laws, we've just seen this now in Hungary, where funds from the European Union, we talk about billions of euros, have been withheld because the government of Hungary is not complying, in this case, with the migration laws of the European Union. So the consequences are very strict if, from a governmental perspective, you infringe and you violate freedom of religion too. But please, if you can specify it, I'm happy to go deeper.
Thank you so much, Professor Anja. You've categorically responded to the question. The only other example that I can call off that there was an incident took place in Spain where some of the university administrators objected if a male professor is wearing a veil. So there's another story that that took place in Spain as well. So another example of you just gave it to us.
We have the same in Germany. We had, for instance, teachers of Muslim faith who were wearing the hijab in school, and then there were huge debates. I can tell you, they all went up to the court, and the court decided in favor of a teacher. Yeah. So yes, there were suspensions of teachers, but in the capacity even of the school principals because they were wearing hijabs. But they were all withdrawn by the court. And as far as I know, in other countries, it's the same case. We have this all over Europe, but you have to follow up the case and what comes out. Sometimes it takes years, and you can call it right. So this is, of course, a weakness. It should not even go that far. Yet when it comes up to the hijab thing, and this is why I gave you the example of the case in Belgium of the shop owner, there are certain professional areas where, yes, it might not be decided in favor of wearing a hijab or practicing their religious customs because they infringe the rights of others. Yeah, but a math teacher in a high school in Stuttgart who teaches math and wears a veil, I think the kids don't care. Yeah, so nobody cares basically, as long as she knows her subject. And that was also the decision by the court. She could continue her being a teacher.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
A well-defined answer, I must say. Thank you so much, Professor, and thank you, Furkan, for your question. Now, I would like to thank our other speakers once again for their time and expertise. This discussion has been incredible, insightful, and important to understand the complexity of state-sponsored threats to the religious freedom. We encourage everyone to contribute in this dialogue beyond today's webinar and to advocate for the policies and protect the religious freedom globally. Thank you all for joining us today. Stay safe, and we're looking forward to continue work together in promoting human rights and religious freedom. Thank you so much.